rare video interviews, and I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Brandi. Brandi is in charge of and leads a team over at DietsInReview.com, a site that has been around for the better part of a decade now, doing some fantastic work, and it's an honor to have you on the show today. Brandi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on here, Sam.
Awesome. It's a real honor. Again, this is something I don't have the chance to do very often, the video version of this. So before we dive into our conversation today, if you could take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself so our listeners and viewers can get to know you.
Sure thing. So I've one of the co-founders and helped create DietsInReview.com all the way back in 2007. It's a group of friends from college, and I kind of found an opportunity within the diet and weight loss space that we felt needed to be filled, and that was that there was no third-party review place where you could go to get reviews about diets and weight loss products that you could actually trust and didn't have a bias in those descriptions and reviews. So we started Diets in Review and very quickly became the largest diet review site on the web and one of the most authoritative and trusted. And it's something we're really proud of. We've been called the Wikipedia of diets with almost 3,000 books and products and programs reviewed on the site. And, but beyond that, it kind of serves as the backbone of the site. But beyond that, we've got a blog where we publish everything from industry news to original recipes every week, to like the fun roundup stuff about, best products and best apps and workouts and the whole gamut. So we really are kind of like an all-in-one, one-stop shop for health and fitness, wellness, nutrition. And we come with a really crack team of experts and health enthusiasts, people who are actually, living and learning this stuff themselves. And, we've got a really light, friendly approach. We don't take any of it more seriously than it needs to be because, after all, food is fun, exercise can be fun. It's not some kind of jail sentence for all of us. So that's Diets in Review in a nutshell. And as for myself, I'm a writer and an editor, and I live by most of what we preach on the site. But like everybody, I've got my vices too. And I'm currently spending the summer traveling around the country with my family. So.
Oh, right on. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, Brandi, I appreciate that. I'm a fan of what you're doing. I think I find it personally. I find it to be an honor when I meet other people who are on a very similar mission, who are doing something that's born out of a passion they have themselves. And from everything I've heard, this has been something you've worked really, really hard at. And fortunately, you're seeing the results of with as many visitors, as many people coming to the site for information as you are. A couple of things in there I want to ask you about. So I completely see why there's a need for DietsInReview.com. I've heard and seen so many conversations, as I'm sure other people have, where so-and-so down the street or at the job or at the gym or whoever is telling them, oh, this is the diet that worked for me. And it's anecdotal, kind of one person to another person information. And there's a lot of benefit to that, from kind of the social proof of having someone say this worked for me. But I like the idea of having data behind it and having kind of a large body of research and being able to compare diets against others. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here on some of the things I wanted to ask you. So before I get into that, what got you into starting this to begin with? Why was this a site that had to be made, and why were you one of the people who had to start it?
So two of the owners were both working in the digital space. One was working for a major health publisher at the time, helping launch a major brand. And in both of those experiences, they kind of saw that there wasn't a place, there was this hole in the industry where there needed to be a spot to fill. And so they asked me to come on and, run content and get the first, I think I wrote the first 200 reviews on the site, I think.
Wow.
But it definitely appealed to me because it was something that wasn't terribly important to me at the time, but it was something I was becoming more aware of. Like, I swear to you, when we started Diets in Review, my grocery list was pretty much like frozen pizzas, Hot Pockets, and Capri Suns, and I'd never been to a gym in my life. So, but it was something that I was really kind of starting to kind of come into myself. And you and I've talked. I don't necessarily have a weight loss story myself, like a lot of the people you talk to, but I definitely have a get healthy story. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I had a tire around the middle, and I wasn't entirely comfortable. And to run the 3 flights of stairs up to my apartment was brutal. So I was probably what you would call skinny fat. I looked, I was, a trim 130 on the outside, but on the inside, I'm quite certain my body looked like sludge. So, um, so it was really nice for me to kind of come in and get thrown into the deep end and kind of get this school of hard knocks, nutrition education that now it really does kind of like run my life. How I raise my daughter, her relationship with food, my own relationship with food, and just fitness and wellness in general. Um, so diets was just kind of this hybrid, mashup of, we saw a great business opportunity, and it was something all of us on one level of another were all interested in or participating in anyway.
Yeah. It's hard to get away from food in everyday life, right? Whether you're trying to lose weight or not, it's going to be a big part of your life. Something I
Oh,
hear something I hear frequently in stories is like, regardless of what culture you're from and whatever part of the world my guest is from, if there's a happy event, they're celebrating with food. If there's a sad event, they kind of drown it in food. It's such a part of so many different cultures that it's really easy for it to get out of hand for people who just aren't aware of or staying on top of what their consumption is. So I totally see the value in Diets and Review. I'm really glad that it exists as a resource and that someone like you is leading the team over there.
thanks.
So one of the first questions I want to ask you, and I love asking this of experts because it gives me a real peek into how you view the industry itself and what you personally get out of it in terms of fulfillment too. So the first question is, what do you really enjoy about your line of work and what you do?
I honestly enjoy connecting with people like you. We just got back from the Fit Blogging conference, and it's one of the highlights of my year. I love hearing how people have changed their lives for the better, whether it be, because they discovered yoga, or they discovered Zumba, or they simply just became comfortable with their own body and, the face looking back at them in the mirror, or, they realize they don't have to eat chocolate cake every single day or whatever it is. I love the people and I love the stories, and I definitely over the years have had a few that have like really stuck with me and touched me. I've had an opportunity to sit in the audience at 8 Biggest Loser finales,
Oh
and
wow.
while we all know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and production there, for the most part, it's real work that those people have done. And so every chance I get to hear, we do a true weight loss series on our site that publishes every weekend. Whether we're talking with those individuals and hearing those stories, or I, get to meet somebody at Fit Blogging or whatever it is, like Alan Ali from Sweating It Off.
Yeah.
I ran into him at the hotel lobby at Fit Blogging, and I seriously burst into tears the second I saw him because I hadn't seen him in a year. And while I've seen the pictures because he's like the selfie-taking king, I've seen the pictures and I've heard the stories, and we've had 100 conversations in the past year. But walking up and seeing him for myself, like I was so overwhelmed that somebody had just. Courtney Crozier from Biggest Loser says all the time, all you have to do is change your mind. And he changed his mind, and he decided this is what he wanted, and nothing was going to stop him. And for some reason, I think I love personal success. My husband laughs at me because I cry all the time, but whether somebody's winning a spelling bee, or they're losing 200 pounds, or they graduated from college, or whatever it is, like I love personal success and seeing people reach their goals. And so I think that's probably my favorite part of my job and what I get to do, is because I get a front row seat to so many of those stories.
I love it. I share the same kind of like I'm super sensitive where that kind of stuff goes, and I'm right there with you. It was kind of surreal meeting Alan face to face for me. This was my first time ever meeting him face to face at Fit Blogging. And for anyone who's not familiar with who we're talking about, his handle on Instagram and all over social media is Sweating It Off. And he has a fantastic story on his own. He's doing speaking now and a lot of engagements like that. He's a super inspiring guy. He's a lot of fun to talk to just personally. But he's one of many stories that you share on your site, and of individuals that, like you say, are really inspiring in the work that they've put in and that they've done. And I want to come back to Biggest Loser a little bit later. I'm really glad you brought that up. I'm curious about a couple of things there. So that said, I share your passion for the success stories. I personally believe there's more than enough bad news networks in the world, that we really need more outlets that kind of share personal triumph and personal success and things like this. I mean, this is the stuff that moves people forward, and like you, I get a lot out of doing this, and I love to hear stories like this. So I want to flip gears here, though, and ask you about what frustrates you about what you do, and perhaps just your feelings on the health and fitness industry in general and the state of it today. What are some things that really, really get under your skin in the work that we do?
I've become very jaded, over the course of the last 7, 8 years. There's a lot that, I guess I've peeked behind the curtain, and there's a lot that I find very frustrating. I hate how, and I'm using the word hate, it's all, so much of it is so manipulative, and it takes advantage of people, whether it takes advantage of them financially or emotionally. There's just the whole, like, Dr. Oz thing. Here's this man who people trust, who we should trust. He's an incredible expert. He knows a lot, and for so long his intentions were so good. And I mean, I followed him very closely because it was this really easy way to get some big information in a really small, consumable way that you could actually use. And one day it just turned into the fish oils network. But the sad thing is, not everybody saw that. Yeah. So I'm going to visit my grandma, and she's letting me know that she needs to go buy an acai pill because it's going to do this, that, or the other. And I'm always frustrated when it's, new package, same story. I don't know how many books. Like, yesterday alone I had pitches for 4 new books just yesterday. And there's 365 days in a year, so, you do the math. Yeah. And I guarantee you, if you flip any of them open, if you really just, like, break down the information inside, it's all the same. We just keep repackaging the same stuff. And I think, for everybody's benefit, if we could just narrow it and break it down, and it's not one size fits all. There's a reason so many different things exist, because what works for you isn't going to work for me, isn't going to work for the next person, because it really isn't a matter of just calories, or it's not just a matter of what you eat or how much you sweat. Every body is different, and we metabolize and process all of these things differently. But I just wish that we'd quit trying to spin up some big, great new thing every 6 months, because it's just confusing. And again, it ends up taking advantage of people and their mindsets and their bank accounts, and I think that's unfortunate. I don't know that there's another industry that exists that takes people the way this one does.
Yeah, I've seen and heard a lot of similar sentiment from people in the industry who just, you're absolutely right. Like, that's an astounding number of books pitched your way too. Just in the course of a year, I can imagine how many of them are the same thing. I mean, I saw, to your point about just straight up repackaging, I had a conversation on LinkedIn with someone recently in a forum there where they were asking if people have tried everything and they're tired of spinning their wheels, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's the brand new thing. And before they could even say what it was, someone asked, well, what is this? How is this different from anything we've seen in the past? And I was feeling particularly sarcastic this morning, and so I posted on there, well, let me guess, it's going to be some hard to pronounce Latin herb from a third world country, and it's gonna be something that promises crazy results in the next 30 days. And sure enough, her response, or the person's response to this, was a copy paste of something that appeared on 50 other websites, and it was exactly that. It's repackaged Metamucil, right? I don't want to even use the product's name. Yeah. And it's this, these two herbs that you don't see or find very often, so no one knows, that the layperson doesn't know where to go and search for the studies that tell you what these are and what kind of research has been done on them. And so when you look into them, though, they're things that even if there has been some success seen with these in studies, it's like that last 0.1%. You know what I mean? Or if someone's weight loss journey, was just straight up old school diet and exercise for 99% of the way, and then they also took this thing, it's in no way responsible for the dramatic changes. You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those things that, like, not to simplify it so much, but if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Hmm.
Our great grandmas were telling us that. And it's true for just about every diet that's out there. If it looks too good to be true, just, I wish more people, and this is going to sound harsh, but I wish more people would just use common sense. Does it look too good to be true? Do you really think taking a pill is going to undo years of bad habits? Because that's not how it works. There's no overnight quick fix. One of my favorite things people always say is, you didn't put it on overnight and you're not going to lose it overnight. And you shouldn't want to lose it overnight. There's a transformation that takes place, and you need to give yourself to that process. And for some people, that process is 10 pounds in 2 months. And for some people, that process is 200 pounds in 2 years. But you give yourself to that process and allow yourself to go through the transformation and changes, and not just be so eager. We are a quick fix society. If
Yeah.
the app doesn't load the second I want to buy it, like, how come I'm not already on level 3 of playing this game? It's something I'm, like, really focused on with my daughter, who does live in an instant now, everything's readily available world, and trying to teach a 4-year-old patience in a world that doesn't actually have any is quite a challenge. But when it comes to our own bodies and our own selves, again, whether that's 10 pounds or 200 pounds, we need to be more willing to let that process happen. And 30 days and 45 days, you're not going to change much. And if you do, it's not going to last.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it time and time again that and I'm sure you have as well, that almost the faster the weight comes off, the more likely it is to pile back on. And
Yeah.
the stats aren't very pretty for programs that promise weight loss quickly, and even for some procedures where people lose weight really quickly. The stats are pretty sobering for what the rates are of regain. But on the other side of that, the stats for people who lose weight slowly and in a measured approach over periods of time, who really have made the process part of their lifestyle, see the lasting results. Have you seen the same thing based off of what you've learned at the site?
Oh, absolutely. I can even say that for myself. I mean, when I can remember when I had, kind of decided, diets and reviews in full swing, and I was, really, really, coming around to making, my own changes, and um, not just counting, climbing 3 flights of stairs as my workout for the day. um, it's not an all or nothing kind of thing, and it's not an all at once thing. I noticed even for myself and with others when, I would change one thing and kind of focus on that and then slowly adopt something else. That's when everything stuck. There's a guy that we've featured on our site a couple of times, John Thompson, who's lost 200 some pounds. Looks incredible. He's now running half marathons and marathons, and
Oh,
he's living this incredible life now. And the thing for him was brown rice. He said, I went to a restaurant one night, and the option, they asked which side I wanted, and he says, that night I ordered brown rice instead of French fries. And he's like, and that's seriously the changing point, when he just made this one choice, and then the next time he had to choose a side, he chose brown rice instead of French fries. And at home, he started making brown rice instead of mashed potatoes or whatever.
oh,
And slowly but surely, it becomes so much easier to order the salad instead of, you know, French fries. And it becomes easier to order a baked sweet potato instead of a baked potato, or whatever it is. But slowly but surely, those changes, they just become second nature, and you realize it's not all that hard, and it's not as gross as you think it is, and it's not as time consuming as you think it is, and it just becomes, who you are.
yeah. I've seen that so many times, and you're absolutely right. It's like I've heard guests describe it as a muscle, right? Like that the more you practice it, the easier it gets, and the more you build up almost kind of a self-discipline to be able to say no. And that's, at least from in my opinion, I've seen that kind of spill over into other parts of people's lives where they get really good at setting boundaries with their food choices and making conscious decisions and having control over this little bubble of their diet, and slowly that ripples out to other aspects of their life where they're setting boundaries now and making choices and making decisions that they never did before. It's like their whole world changes because of starting at this one place,
Mhm.
and it's awesome to watch. It really is.
It's funny, like in John's case, he can pinpoint the exact moment that, things change for him. And most people with these major weight loss stories can tell you. It's kind of like, falling in love. I can tell you when I fell in love with my husband, and likewise. And most people can tell you that moment when they fell in love. Or most people can tell you where I was when something significant happened. And weight loss is no different. Like, I quoted Courtney a minute ago. When you change your mind, that moment that the shift happens, you make the decision to do it.
Yeah.
Almost every person can pinpoint that. Because it's a significant moment in your life.
Yeah, it really is. You're flipping onto a different track, and everything from then on is going to be different.
Yeah.
Love it. So I want to switch gears here a little bit and go on to a slightly different track. And one of the things I want to ask you about is, we talked really briefly about kind of the snake oils in the industry. And so I want to ask you about one specific fad or myth, or just one of those contemporary wisdom kind of things. What's the one thing that gets under your skin and is the biggest pet peeve for you, where anything related to diets or fitness is concerned?
That you can't cheat. I hate the word cheat, but that you can't do it. That once you've lost the weight, you can't have the French fries. You can't have a piece of cake. You can't go one day without working out. And I don't think that's true. I think I'm a big kind of, all things in moderation person in my own life in a lot of different ways. And that's the one thing I can't stand, is that either people are sold on a cheat day, and I don't like to call them cheats. I think it's just, this is the choice you made in this particular moment, or that you can't cheat at all. When we were here so FitBlogging this year was in Savannah, and I'm actually still here. Like I said, my family's traveling around the country all summer, and we've stayed. Savannah is clearly not the first place you want to go if you're trying to manage. Everything is deep fried and smothered, and it's delicious. But what I loved was that in the weeks leading up to FitBlogging, one person posted in the chat group that if they were going to splurge on one thing while they were here, what was like the one thing they should definitely have? And I loved that. Like, she was planning ahead for it. She knew she was going to get here, and that the Southern food was calling. What should she have? I saw a lot of people go out and visit the local famous 100-year-old ice cream shop, and they got 2 scoops of it in there. And I mean, like I said, we've been here for a month, and I have had the most amazing fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, Southern buttermilk biscuit meal of my life, and I've had it more than once. But it's okay, because the next meal I had wasn't fried shrimp; it was steamed shrimp. And I keep my fridge, we're renting a little house, we keep it stocked with, yogurt and tons of fresh fruit, and we're walking everywhere. We barely drive our car. So it's one of those things that it's like, yes, you can have the piece of birthday cake. You can stop and get a croissant for breakfast. But you have to know your own limitations too. Like, if you're one of those people who has the first potato chip, and you're not going to come up for air until you're like shaking the corner of the bag in your mouth, which is me, then no, I can't have potato chips. But I know that I can have a piece of fried chicken, and I haven't wrecked, my entire food philosophy or my weight loss plan. So that would be my big peeve, is yes, you can have a little bit, know your limitations. You can have a piece of cake. You can't have the whole cake.
That's such a good point. It's for a lot of people, the deprivation aspect is something that puts them off of diets really easily, and really early on. I mean, it can be only a couple of days in, a week in, before someone can say, you know what, I cannot go the rest of my life without chocolate or ice cream or something like that, and I wouldn't want to either. But there's, that I think you make a really good point, that if you know yourself well enough to know that you're that personality who is not going to, like you said, come up for air. I love the way you said that. Who's going to have that experience, then you know ahead of time that that's not a route to go down. But that doesn't mean that you can't have another option and have kind of a safer experience and be able to control yourself better in that scenario.
Right. It's one of the things that we actually look at when we're reviewing diets is how restrictive is it? No diet should cancel out any group of food. If you've got a diet that says you can't have fruit, then turn the other way, because fruit's really good for you and you should be able to have some fruit. If it's completely, removing bread or bread products, probably not a great idea. If it's removing any one group of food or any one group of, one nutrient or something, then it's kind of a red flag for us, because it can't be that restrictive. That's not how people live.
Yeah. So that said, let's talk about some of the commonalities you see in the diet programs and dietary approaches that are the highest rated and seem to have the highest rate of success on Diets in Review. What is it that you see as kind of a common thread between them? That it sounds like they're not being restrictive is one of them. What else have you seen that they have in common?
Yeah, any kind of flexibility generally people are attracted to, because real life happens. You go to weddings, you go to buffets, you forget to lay out dinner and it's 7 o'clock at night. Any kind of customization or personalization, which is becoming, has become probably more prevalent with the internet than before. You can go pick up the latest Jillian Michaels book or the latest South Beach diet book off the shelf at the bookstore, but it's pretty black and white. Whereas if you can sign up for like the new Mayo Clinic just launched an online program last week. You can go in and you can enter all of your stats, your goals, your information, and it's going to alter that program to suit your needs a little bit more than just a black and white book. So any kind of personalization. I think those are probably the two biggest things: flexibility and customization. People want to be able to live a little, and they want something that feels like it was made just for them. Where most people don't go, or maybe can't afford to go to a dietitian or a trainer, which is where you're going to get the ultimate, customized plan. Any that can do that. Affordability and accessibility are probably the other two. People are willing to spend a little bit more money for a weight loss program or product, but as long as the results are going to be there and they're going to get out of it what they want, and accessibility kind of plays into that. And again, that's where the web kind of becomes a little more helpful. If I can log on, I can get to it from my app. Maybe I've got a gadget I'm using. In some cases, maybe there's a meeting you can go to, or there's a weekly counselor meeting or something like that. But giving people options and different ways that they can actually access the program helps, because you've got people who don't want to leave their house, and so, going to a standing weekly meeting isn't accessible to them. You've got people who live on the road or are constantly traveling for work or whatever. They need something that's going to keep up with them. So, yeah, I would say those are probably the things we see most often that people are attracted to.
That makes a lot of sense. What I've seen and heard in so many success stories now, and it sounds like you're experiencing off the ratings and of the diets too, is that just like you said earlier, there's not one solution that works for everyone, and the perfect recipe for every person is as individual as probably like music tastes. Like whatever is the thing that you can be consistent with, and is going to be something that you don't feel deprived at, and is just it's in line with your lifestyle, is what's going to work in the long term. And I love to hear that. It's very validating for me to hear that based off of all the work that you've done for almost a decade over at Diets in Review. And that jives perfectly with what I've seen over 100 interviews now with success stories. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I use the term signing up to be miserable for when I hear people jumping in or diving into a diet that from the beginning they know is going to be difficult. If they're saying I can't eat X, Y, or Z, or I can't have X, Y, Z, I already know and this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like they're already going into this with a mindset of this is not going to be something I can maintain for the rest of my life, because that's already having that mindset of scarcity, of something being missing there that they're going to miss. And I think from the beginning that's a flawed approach, but it sounds like you've seen the same, where if someone's going into something that is a lot more in line with the life they live and lets them have things they want without feeling like they're depriving themselves, they're a lot better off in the beginning and set up for success.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So I want to ask you something about what brings people to Diets in Review. And so it's super informative site. There are tons of really great articles there, and just a ton of great resources. But on top of, the research and people who may be browsing for general interest and just want to educate themselves, I've found in my work that people take action after something big or something emotional, or something that has just clicked something in their life and set them on a path with some purpose. And so I'm curious what you've seen in your work are some of the reasons that people come to Diets in Review and are on a mission, right? And they start looking through the diets and trying to figure out something that's going to work for them. What have you seen in your experience?
December 26th. All jokes aside, like December 26th is considered like an all hands on deck kind of day. It's crazy. People wake up the morning after Christmas and it's time. They don't really even wait for like New Year's Eve anymore. Like they wake up the morning after Christmas and realize the pants are snug, or they're looking back at the family group pictures that were taken over the weekend and realize like they don't really recognize the person sitting in the picture.
Yeah.
And they start coming, and it's like that throughout the year. After a big holiday weekend, we'll always see a surge in traffic because, again, maybe during the summer it's everyone else was able to go to the beach this weekend, and I stayed home because it just wasn't worth sweating, or it wasn't worth trying to pretend I'm not as big as I am in my bathing suit that I brought, or whatever it is, or, maybe a comment was made, or they saw a family photo, or they went to a wedding. But there's always, what a major event, a holiday, a wedding, something like that, it always sends people in. Anytime you get, a celebrity on the cover of a magazine who people are enthralled with, everybody, comes running and looking. They want to know exactly how they did it. And we don't try to play into that too much. Rather than say, here's how to get Cameron Diaz's body, we'll say, really love Cameron Diaz's arms, here's a workout that you can do that can get you there. But we certainly don't try and say, you too can look exactly like Rachel McAdams or something. I don't know, I'm just spinning names off the top of my head. And people definitely do, but I'm getting a little off track here. Major events, whatever they may be, holiday, a new year, a wedding, birth of a child, any of that, it all sends people in because it forces everybody to just kind of look at themselves, look at those around them, and decide today's the day I'm going to make a change. Biggest Loser premiere.
Yeah.
I think we all see a little bit of ourselves in all of those people. It's easy to kind of connect and relate there. But yeah, those major events, they'll always send people searching.
That's really interesting. To something you said a little bit earlier, where if someone has planned ahead for a holiday, for a special occasion, for if July 4th is around the corner, Thanksgiving, Christmas week, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the end of their health journey, right? There's no reason to fall off the wagon and completely give up on the year and all the hard work that you've done. And so this is a totally unexpected question here, but how do you personally plan going into those events? Like for you right now, this month has been totally out of the ordinary where your schedule is concerned. I would imagine being on the road with your family. So 4th of July was recently, and we're probably looking at going back to school soon, so that's going to change routines again, perhaps. But like going into holidays, social events, things where you're going to be maybe presented with temptations you don't normally have in a week. How do you plan ahead for those? What's your strategy?
Um, like little things. Like if I know I've got a big dinner planned, or like we're going out to some place for dinner, then I'll probably eat a lighter breakfast than maybe I normally would, or a lighter lunch, and then, because I don't want to be like completely filled up. Or if we are going to lunch with a group, then I'm definitely not going to order the burger. I'm going to order something light, and then I'm not going to feel, all icked out after what I know is going to be like, some massive barbecue buffet or something. Um, I drink tons of water, so I'll just, make sure I'm drinking even more water before I go. Or if I know I'm going into like a big, heavy, like drinking weekend, like everybody's going to be at the lake or whatever, then I don't drink as much or, at all the days leading up to it. I like to host, so if it's Easter dinner or Thanksgiving dinner, then I'll send the invite out and say, "Hey, I'd love to have everybody over and feel free to bring something." But
Uh,
I know for sure that we're gonna roast the turkey and we're going to bake the sweet potatoes, but we're not gonna put marshmallows all over them. And I know, like, I control the meal, and it's all the same things that they were going to make anyway, but I just didn't slather and drench and fry and prepare the food in a way that I know I'm not going to enjoy and that none of us need to eat. Living on the road this summer, we've traveled 7,500 miles since May 16th, and so that's a lot of, I mean, we're on the road. So it's just a lot of just planning ahead. Like, I know that we're going to be on the road for the next 4 hours. Well, in general, I could probably go 4 hours without eating. So I'm going to go ahead and eat a turkey sandwich before we get on the road, pack some fruit in case we get hungry, and then we're good. I don't need to stop at the fast food place on the turnpike. We packed my daughter's bicycle and my husband's skateboard so we can stop at, like the little rest stop places and
yeah.
get out and pedal around and burn some energy for a little while, and I'll take a walk or whatever. Um, we're just trying to think ahead of, where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, and how we should eat or plan to move when we get there. And people act like it's this big, massive undertaking, but it's really not. Like, it doesn't take any more time to decide that I'm going to eat a turkey sandwich now rather than in an hour I'm going to feel hangry and I'm going to dive into the first, you
Hmm.
know, combo meal I can find. It just takes a little bit of extra planning. We go to the beach fairly often. It's just 30 minutes from Savannah. So I know if I go to the beach, I'm going to get good exercise that day between digging sand and carrying my daughter around and running up and down on the beach which that's the kind of exercise I like. I don't want to go to a class. I don't want to go to the gym. I'd rather do. And I pack a cooler, and I know that we're going to be out there for a while, so I pack plenty of water. I take fresh fruit. I pack little sandwiches, and then when we're out there, we don't have to find the corn dog cart. We can just, have watermelon and oranges on the beach, which tastes so much better anyway. But yeah, it's a little bit of plan. I mean, just consider where you're going, where you're headed. Um, and if I know I'm going to be in a situation like, going to a wedding where there's going to be this massive buffet and I have zero control over what's being served, then, like I said, I just, pay attention to what I'm eating the rest of the day, and then I just, I go ahead and, go all in when I get there.
Right on. And so I hear a theme of thinking ahead and planning ahead and not letting yourself fall into a place of where you're making a desperation decision kind of in the moment. And I think that's the characteristic I've seen and heard among so many successful losers that I'd be remiss to not mention that again. Very cool. So Brandi, I want to ask you also, kind of on the other side of that, is what are some obstacles that you've personally run into or you've seen off the boards at Diets and Review and in your work that people run into that are significant challenges to their progress, things that just completely derail people or that present the biggest challenges for their continuing to lose. What's been your experience personally, and then what have you learned from people on the site?
On a personal perspective, it's when stress or life just gets beyond what you feel like you can handle. So last year, I lost my grandparents 2 weeks apart,
Wow.
and I hadn't eaten an Oreo in probably 7, 8 years, and I was buying like a pack of Oreos every week, and I don't know that I went grocery shopping for like 2 months. Like we were just eating at, like, if we were eating, it was like whatever, I don't care, just eat something, anything.
Yeah.
I I was totally, and I would joke about it, be like, I'm eating my feelings, and somewhere the end of my grief is at the bottom of this pack of double stuffed Oreos. um, and I know just from stories that I've read, people I've talked to, and things I read that come across from people on Diets and Review, I'm far and away not the only person.
Yeah.
So I think just again, those major life events, the same things that will send you into a diet are the same things that will push you right out of it. And I've had family members who were doing really well, making really great strides, and then a heart attack would happen, or they break their leg, or something happens, and now suddenly you can't get to that gym class that you've really been loving and really been committed to, or suddenly you're laid up in bed for months, or whatever it is. But I think just those unexpected kind of tragic, sad, stressful life events, they'll send you away as quickly as the good stuff will send you in.
Yeah. I'm just on a personal note, I'm sorry to hear about your grandparents.
Oh, thank you.
And I think a lot of people can relate to what you just said. It really is those things that it's how you respond to stress, right? And that's that you make a decision in that moment that you're going to go down a path that makes you feel better in the there and now. But it's when you stay on that and kind of don't correct after a week, after a couple weeks, that you kind of you end up somewhere you didn't intend to go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in my I definitely got to like the end of the year and kind of had one of those like, what have I been doing moments. Like, this isn't. I've got to stop.
Yeah.
Can't keep going. There are other ways to manage stress and deal with these things. And for me, it was funny. My grandpa loved Oreos. He was a diabetic and he couldn't have them. But he would buy the mini Oreos, and then when he was having like a blood sugar episode, he would just have like one of those. And that is by not diabetic medical advice for other people. But that was his little treat. And so I think like, after he passed, we had Oreos at the funeral, and so I took them all home. And so of course, I'll just have one. Wow, I remember how good those are. And then suddenly, you're just eating all of the Oreos. Looking at all the pictures and wondering, like, you're in this spiral of, chocolate cookies. But but we all, and I would definitely have moments. But to the other extreme too, I would have these moments where I'd laugh, where I'd go, I wish I were one of those people who would get so stressed out I couldn't eat. Right? But that's not healthy or beneficial either. But, I would have friends going through, similar situations, and every time you'd see them, they were like 5 pounds lighter. And you're like, well, I wish I could just not eat my way through stress. Instead, I'm like, where are the brownies? So, and it's such a human thing that we all share. And it goes back to, like we were saying, like there's no life event that doesn't involve or focus on food. Even the funeral, like the biggest thing I had to worry about was what people were going to eat. Stressed out. Are you going to eat or you're not going to eat? Going to a wedding, what are you going to eat? On a road trip. I mean, our lives are just consumed by food. So it's like I said earlier, it's fine to eat the food, have the food, enjoy the food. Like, I love food. I just know that I can only have so much of it, and that, at least every couple of days I need to eat something that grew out of the ground.
So you made reference to something in there, and we've touched on it really briefly throughout our conversation today, and I want to come back to, because it's for me personally, this is a really key part of the entire journey, and that's your mental state, right? Your attitude, kind of the belief in yourself or lack thereof, is to me a really, really powerful indicator of how successful you're going to be as well. So my question to you is, what have you seen rather, that's common in people as they approach diets and start doing research on the site and talking to you and your team? What do you see are some of the traits of people that are ultimately successful? Like, are they coming at it with a certain kind of mindset? Or if they don't, what do you see that changes in them when they do become successful? Does that make sense? That was kind of a broad...
No, it does. those people who are going to be successful come in with they're committed. They're willing to sacrifice friends. They're willing to sacrifice social events. They're willing to give up a lot of things in order to, lose the weight or get healthy or whatever that, declaration for them is. They're fully committed. It's not, and they're not looking for the 30-day fix. They know it's going to take time, and they're ready to put in the work. Those people who come in with their mind made up, they've changed their mind, the shift happened. The people who come in, oh, I'd like to lose 10 pounds for my sister's wedding. Well, why is it just 10 pounds for your sister's wedding? As if the 10 pounds, like you're comfortable with the 10 pounds the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not okay with the 10 pounds for this one day.
Yeah.
And those people who come in with this, short-term kind of, for lack of a better word off the top of my head, flaky goal, those don't work out. And you might lose the 10 pounds for your sister's wedding, but by the time she's getting back from her honeymoon, you're probably going to be 10 pounds up again. And the people who come in and say, okay, I want to use my sister's wedding as a reason. Like when I get to my sister's wedding, I want to look good, I want to feel good, and I don't ever want to go back to feeling the way I feel right now. Those are the people who generally stick with it and make it happen.
Yeah.
Now, if your sister's getting married in 2 weeks, you're probably you're probably not going to make it. If you've got time to get to those goals, then and the goals that are for themselves, saying that you want your husband to love you more or something like that. That's something bigger and deeper that you can't really control. So whether you lose the weight or not, the relationship with your spouse isn't going. You don't have a lot of control over that. But losing weight because you want to feel better about yourself or you want to love yourself more, that's a reason to lose weight. But doing it for somebody else, that doesn't typically work out because that person's not as invested in it as you are.
Yeah, you make a really good point there that there's a significant difference between kind of that intrinsic motivation of something that connects really deeply inside that person for themselves and doing something for someone else or for their environment or, I see it as a difference between pushing yourself and being pulled by an outside goal, right? Mm-hmm. And at least for me personally, being kind of a stubborn person by nature, I don't do well being pulled in any direction, but when I'm pushing, nothing can stop me. It's full speed ahead. So I see what you said about the goal being inside and for you personally just makes it 10 times more powerful. It makes it all the more likely that you'll be successful. I completely agree with you.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be for you.
Yeah. So you made mention of something there, and this brings me back to the Biggest Loser topic, and it was that if you have 2 weeks to a wedding, then in terms of reality, you're not going to lose those 10 pounds, and at least not in any healthy way. No. This whole topic of realistic results brings me back to the Biggest Loser and kind of what we see portrayed on TV as normal rate of loss, right? It looks like anyway when we watch these shows that 10 pounds in a week, 12 pounds in a week, sometimes 20 pounds in a week and a half at these weigh-ins is normal. And in my personal opinion, that is far from normal. What do you see in your work that is closer to like realistic expectations for someone who is on a journey as opposed to what they're seeing on TV?
We go with kind of the industry standard that is 1 to 2 pounds per week. It's safe and reasonable. And anything beyond that, make sure you're talking to a doctor. I mean, people in real life are going to lose more than that some weeks, but in general, you're not going to lose Biggest Loser weight week to week. What people miss on that show is the weigh-ins aren't always a 7-day week to week, right? Sometimes there's 10 days, sometimes there's 12 days, sometimes there's 2 weeks, depends on a shoot schedule. They're also in almost like a lab environment. It's so controlled and so monitored that, first of all, off camera, there's a fleet of medics and physical therapists and doctors and people just monitoring everything they do. And you don't have that in real life. So yeah, realistically, 1 pound or 2 a week. That's reasonable. It's safe. it's manageable. You can do that. Um, don't get caught up in what you see on TV or the cover of a magazine, because most of these people have budgets that far exceed what the average person has, which means
Mm,
they can have a chef, or they can have a trainer, or they can have somebody watch their kids for 3 hours at a stretch so they can go to the gym and go to yoga and whatever. Um, the people at Biggest Loser, they leave their families, they leave their jobs, they have somebody who does all the grocery shopping. In other words, they don't have anything else to do or anything else to think about except exercise.
yeah.
And the food that's in the house is very controlled. So, when you do want to go in and get something to eat, it can only be so bad. you know, you can eat as much of it as you want, but it can only be so bad. So, remember, it's Hollywood, it's production. There's smoke and mirrors. At the end of the day, it's a TV show,
Yeah.
and they've got one goal, and that's ratings. And people losing 3 pounds a week doesn't bring ratings.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you share that kind of that point of view. I think it's a dangerous thing have what people see on that show be what people expect, and so I think you're giving a very fair, reasonable warning that 2 to 3 pounds a week is way more reasonable than 10 to 15, and it's no reason to beat yourself up or feel like you're failing or give up on something when you only right in quotes 2 or 3 pounds in a week as opposed to the 10 or 15. Progress is progress, right? Sometimes it's one step, sometimes it's five, but as long as you're moving in the right direction, right, it doesn't matter the speed. At least that's been my opinion.
I mean, there are takeaways from Biggest Loser that are positive too. Proof that hard work does pay off.
Hmm.
In their case, hard work happens in 3 months. It might take you 6 or 9 or 12, but they've committed to this goal and they work their tails off, and it does pay off. Changing what you eat, like that to me is the biggest thing that show
Yeah.
displays, is people go on who and there's a lot of product placement nonsense, but like ground turkey, switch so many things to turkey bacon, turkey sausage, ground turkey for your spaghetti or chili, whatever. Like, it really does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. Drinking tons of water, having a support system, having people to work out with, having people to swap meal ideas with. There's a lot of things on Biggest Loser that I do think, and by and large, the success stories that exist after the show, like the people who go home and stick to it. And I'm in a unique position where I know a lot of these people personally, and so I do get to keep up with their stories and see how they're doing at home. And so it's easier for me to say, yeah, just look at how they're doing at home. They stuck with it. That's where the real work happens. But it's true. If the cameras followed them when they go back home, there's such a bigger story to tell, because, they re-enter real life. Now they've got the kids and a spouse and a job and bills to pay, and all the stresses and everyday ins and outs that all of us have to deal with. But now they have to do it, and and lose weight or maintain weight like everybody else does. So for as many bad examples as that show sets, there's as many good examples too. So my opinion on the whole thing is probably different than a lot of people, but I see as much good as I do bad in it.
I was going to say I see a whole different. I think the lens we use on things colors like what we see, right? And so if you go at it looking for the positive, you find it. And so I all that to say that you've actually opened my eyes a bit to looking at The Biggest Loser and similar shows in kind of a different way. I've been very critical and outspoken in a couple of different forums about my feelings on the show and the format. Really, my biggest problem with it is the format of or the criteria to pick a winner, like the person who loses the most. I don't know. I don't know what a better criteria could be, for a show where there's a prize, but I think that's where the root of my issue with it is. And I completely agree. They actually do cover a lot of the mental aspect in those one-on-one conversations where you see someone really, really get raw and open about, how they got into this place to begin with and the circumstances and choices that got them there. And yeah, I completely agree. They actually do spend a lot of time on making better food choices. I'm not on board with the subway train when they had that whole season, but I think you're absolutely right. They do focus on the right things overall, and definitely there is.
for a lot of people, it's the most access they have to that information.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
so
point.
I appreciate it for that. I think that show has inspired a lot of people to lose weight on their own. I think it's forced a lot of people to change their own lives. And so, like I said, there's as much good as there is bad in it. And it's, take away the part, again, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Take away the common sense parts, leave the Hollywood stuff behind. But yeah, we'll probably be talking about Biggest Loser for decades to come. Well after the show has, left its place in prime time, because I do think it's made a huge impact on health and weight loss, and way all of us, kind of see obesity on the whole.
Yeah.
And I think it helped bring to light the fact, the government has been trying to tell us that we're all obese and fat for years, and different organizations have been trying to tell us that we're obese, and nothing really tells you how heavy we are until you put 300-pound people in their sports bras on national TV. And then you look at them and go, these are moms and school teachers and bankers, and they're our neighbors. These people truly live on our street. And it's really helped bring to light the fact that this problem does exist. But it also shows that, it's not a life sentence, and that there are things you can do to change it. And again, you just have to change your mind and make the decision that that's what you want to do for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something there about the way that they're presented, is helping people, at least in my opinion, helping people around the world who are in similar lifestyles as them, similar situations, have the same kind of doubts in their mind that these people are sharing on the show, to feel a little better about their situation, right? It's really easy to feel like you're in a vacuum if you're you're one person in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and you don't have anyone around you to support you. This might be, and you really opened my eyes to this. This is a really good point, that this could be their only access to seeing that there are other people like them, experiencing the same emotions, going through the same challenges. And so I thank you for that. I try to do the same thing with Tips of the Scale, but you're absolutely right. I think the network medium of The Biggest Loser is just one place where someone could be looking at other people like them for the first time.
Yeah, it's Biggest Loser is a conundrum. There's lots of pros and cons there, but and I don't have any ties or official relationship there. Like, all of my my opinions are my own. So yeah, it's like I said, it's as good as it is bad.
So let's switch gears here a little bit. I want to ask you about something different. And in your work, you probably have people who express what goals they have for the end of their journey, or the progress, or whatever their goal is to that person. And so my question is, what do you see is, in your opinion, a healthier goal to have, in terms of looking for a number or a range, or maybe health markers? Like, what kind of criteria you think is the safest personally, and then what you see is the goal that people enter into diets with when they come to Diets in Review that carries them the furthest. Does that make sense? Like, what is it that they're looking toward that guides them the best?
I think the people who come in with that "I'm going to lose 200 pounds" goal, but on the way, I want to lose 20 by Christmas. I want to lose, 30, or I want to lose 10 pounds a month until. Or the ones who come in and say, "I'm going to lose 100 pounds and that's it." They don't allow themselves a lot of wiggle room for, you are going to plateau, you are going to slow down. Or the ones with a hard and fast, "I'm going to lose 100 pounds by spring break." The ones who don't allow for any flexibility or wiggle room or, real life to happen. The goals, I love the idea of one really massive end goal that's achieved through a bunch of smaller, really, attainable goals.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I love the goals that aren't so focused on, I have to be 150 pounds, I have to be 120 pounds, I have to be a size 4, whatever. I am a big proponent of feel comfortable in your skin. I personally, the only time I ever weigh myself is when I go to the doctor, and they make me. Otherwise, we have a scale in our house, but I don't ever use it. I can tell you probably like a 5 or 10 pound range that I'm in, but I know when my pants are tight, and that's what I go by. And that was my whole thing after I had my daughter was it was it was cheaper for me to get back down to the size I was all of my pre-pregnancy clothes than it was for me to try to get even smaller or for me to just become comfortable at that size. I couldn't afford to go out and buy an entire new wardrobe. So it was cheaper for me to just, lose the remaining pounds after I had my baby, which I trained for a half marathon and did my first half marathon. That was my thing. And I've pretty much been at that size since I got married 12 years ago, and I'm still that size. And it's just easier for me to stay in my pants than it is to work towards something really even smaller that's not necessary because I'm comfortable. I like my body. My body works. And I don't want to get any bigger for health reasons and because I know that at a larger size I wouldn't be comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
So when my pants get tight, I know it's time to skip the next round of fried chicken and, hit an extra yoga class here and there. And when my pants fit, then, I know that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do and I'm taking care of myself. I think one of the goals that people overlook that they really should pay attention to are those numbers, your blood pressure, your cholesterol level. Those things do change, and a lot of it's genetic, but talk with your doctor, go in and get a physical before you start or when you start, and kind of use some of those numbers as a baseline. But again, like the ways that people lose weight, it's different. For me, to use my pants as a gauge, that works for me, and that's where I'm comfortable. It may not work for everybody else, and declaring that you want to weigh 150 pounds may be the thing that lights a fire for you. For me, I didn't want to have to go out and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a new wardrobe. So I just, I refused to change my pant size.
It's the no pants change diet.
That's it. Book coming soon.
Brandi, I've had a blast talking to you today. I can tell you're very passionate about what you do, and it's awesome to see and to hear how you've kind of built this into your lifestyle too. I have no doubt you're setting a fantastic example for your little girl, and just the lifestyle you lead, the work that you're doing, and just that you're sharing with other people as you are here today. I want to ask you as we wrap up here a couple of real quick closing questions. Do you have, other than the obvious one, and I want to know a little bit more about it too, do you have any resources that you can recommend for listeners to go and check out and become better educated about anything we've talked about today?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, like Diets and Review has to get, we source our stuff from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So, I love CalorieKing.com. It's probably the most thorough database I've found online with nutrition labels for anything from an orange to restaurant foods to packaged foods. It's all on there. There's an app. And I'm not going to remember the name, so I'm going to pull it up here real quick. But you can scan the barcode of a food, and Fooducate, I think is what it's called. I'm not finding it fast enough on my phone. I think it's called Fooducate, but you can scan the label of a food, and it'll pop up and show you ingredients that you should, like red flag ingredients. So that's fun at the grocery store to just make a scan, especially when you're standing there with two things that the splashy labels on the front make it seem like it's fine, but you give it a quick scan and you're like, wait a second, this thing is way better than that. I enjoy that. There's a little site called twofoods.com, TWO foods.com, and you can put in any two things. So yesterday I put in oatmeal and quinoa, and it'll show you right next to each other, just real quick, a quick comparison of what the nutrition is. And then I love just typing any food and nutrition into Google. So tomato nutrition, pigs nutrition, and it's like a cool little thing right there in the search page that pops up and shows you a bunch of stuff. And then Foursquare. I think I've heard that one before. Since we're traveling around so much, so for people who are traveling, I've completely relied on Foursquare the whole time we've been traveling to find yoga studios. Well, yoga's my thing. I love yoga. Like I said, I like real life activity. But yoga is like the one group kind of gym thing I do. But I've loved it. It's helped me find studios, stuff that's close to where we're staying, stuff that's walkable. Um, and then my other thing is farmers markets. It's my
Yeah.
favorite tourist thing to do that most people don't consider. But just about any city you're in, any Saturday, there's a farmers market. And like that's how the farmers market was how I found one of the yoga studios we used in Denver. They had a booth set up. Um, find cool, healthy local restaurants, fresh ingredients if you're staying, even just snacks for the day, whatever. So I guess that's some of the stuff I use.
Very cool. There are quite a few of these I hadn't heard of before. I'm definitely gonna check out. Fujicate I've heard of before, so I think you recalled that right. Now I'll double check that link before I post it. The Google and nutrition labels I think is genius. I've accidentally done that I think once or twice, but I'd never thought of that as actually pulling up every label. That's very cool. And Foursquare and Farmers Markets, big fan of both as well. I am. So very cool.
One more real quick one. I just remembered.
Yeah.
Calorie count. If you Google calorie count recipe analyzer, you can put in your own or any recipe. If you find a recipe online, just copy and paste the whole recipe into the thing, tell it how many servings, and it'll give you a full nutrition label.
Oh
So
wow.
if you've come up with some new thing at home and you think it's brilliant or whatever, or you just want to double check, you can throw the full recipe in there and it'll break it down for you.
That is a genius idea. Whoever came up with that, that is really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, Brandi, my next question is on a whole other topic, and that is what are the songs that live on your playlist that are the songs that get you pumped up for activity? Maybe they're what you play going on your way to yoga or for your runs or workouts. What are the songs that absolutely have to be on your playlist to get you in the right frame of mind for activity?
So I don't own a playlist. Here's the thing. I love silence so much. I don't have a playlist. But when I do, I'll pull up like on Spotify or YouTube or something. Pharrell's Happy is just the jam. My daughter and I will both just like break down dancing when that song comes on. My yoga studio that I go to at home plays a lot of like Tom Petty and that kind of stuff. So I always enjoy like a little bit, more upbeat. What have I been listening to a lot lately? Michael Franti and Spearhead.
I have never heard of that.
I just kind of stumbled upon them a couple months ago, and I'm really obsessed. In fact, this Friday night, I think Yahoo Live is running one of their whole concerts Friday night. But Michael Franti and Spearhead, they've got a good vibe. I just like happy, fun music with a good beat. So, yeah, but I don't have a playlist.
Well, those are some great recommendations there. I don't know anyone who hasn't been living under a rock who hasn't heard the Happy song. I heard that like by accident the first time, and it was in my head for like a week before I heard it again and knew what song it was. It's definitely catchy for sure. It's good.
It's definitely, it's like our trip our big road trip this summer. We short and sweet. We moved out of our house, sold our cars, and put everything we own in a pod. And then we've been traveling, and we'll head home sometime in September. But we're doing #Happy Summer, no E. And then our website is A Summer of Happy. So it definitely inspires us to, go find our happy.
I love it. I'm endlessly inspired by people who can just can do what you've done. Have the spontaneity and just the love of life to get up and just chase wherever you feel like going and do the thing that makes you happy. I love that. I think unfortunately a lot of people probably are a little more scared of getting up and doing that than they need to be. But I love to hear stories like yours where people get up and go and actually experience everything that's going on out there and everything life has to offer. I think that's a great experience you're passing on to your little girl as well. That's a great story.
I will say the decision came with a lot of Xanax and more Oreos. But no, I mean like the decision to just, it was like truly like standing on a cliff and somebody telling you jump, and I was like, oh, like I feel like it'll be fun, but I don't know. And so we're like, tomorrow marks 2 months since we left, and no regrets. Like, I am so completely happy with the decision that we made. So I'm ready to get out of Savannah because holy, it's so hot down here.
Yeah.
We're our last stop is in Maine, and I keep looking at the weather, and it's like the high this week is 72, and I'm like, oh, I
Oh,
cannot wait.
that's gorgeous weather. Yeah, you'll love it up there.
But yeah, we're in a good position where we both, work-wise have the flexibility, and our daughter wasn't in school yet, and things just kind of aligned. But yeah, I mean, definitely whatever that big, just one of my favorite quotes from Shawshank Redemption is "Get busy living or get busy dying." And after my grandparents last year and a lot of self-reflection the last several months, I realized I wasn't doing a whole lot of living myself. So
Yeah.
it was time to jump off the cliff and go do something a little bit different. So.
Love it. Love it. I had a very similar moment that kind of started this show for me with the birth of my son. I tremendously admire what you're doing, Brandi, and
Oh, thanks.
again, I can't say this enough because I am so deep in daddy mode for just I've been so wrapped up in how much I love my son since he's been born that again what you're doing for your daughter and just this experience of going cross country and experiencing America the way that you are and setting the example that you are and the life you lead and the work you do is a big deal. I think you're setting a fantastic example, and it sounds like you and your husband are fun people
Oh,
to grow up with. So.
we're trying. We're doing our best like every other parent. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Brandi, again, thank you so much for your time today. I've had a blast talking to you.
Me
I
as
look
well.
forward to, likewise, I look forward to more projects in the future. I want to ask you as we wrap up here, do you have a parting thought you'd like to share with our listeners? And then if you can, please share how people can reach out and get in touch with you.
Yeah, just be happy. I don't take anything more seriously than it has to be. So, even death, and that's pretty heavy stuff. But yeah, life, death, weight loss, food, don't take it any more seriously than you have to. Have some fun and live a little. And you can reach me at dietsinreview.com. Twitter and Facebook are at the same handles. I am at Brandi K on Twitter, BRANDIK, and contact. There's if you need to email, there's a contact form on the website, so you can just shoot us a note there. But we're pretty accessible and we respond to pretty much everybody, so happy to help and love getting those notes from people so we can help them find the resources that they need.
Awesome. Well, Brandi, from everyone here at Tips of the Scale, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, thanks, Sam. I had fun.
Bye.
Bye.